It's been really wonderful to be able to build our community and really understand what people are interested in seeing from a place like ours, as we've been making the plans for what will eventually be the brick and mortar. Because there has not previously been a Black food bookstore.
Our stories in the forefront. Exactly, Welcome to Dishing Up Diaspora, where we explore how food connects us to culture, history, and each other. I'm your host, Chef Emmy, and this episode is sponsored by Taste Bahia, a transformative 6-day culinary journey through Salvador Bahia. Experience Afro-Brazilian culture and cuisine through hands-on cooking workshops, visits to historic sites, and vibrant local markets. This is more than just a tour. It's a deep dive into the heart of Bahia, where food, people, and traditions come together. To learn more and book your spot, visit chefemmy.com/taste-bahia. That's chefemmy.com/taste-BAHIA. I want to take this moment to welcome back those of you who have been tuning in. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your support. Welcome to anybody who this is your first episode you've stumbled upon. Welcome. In any case, make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you're listening, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button because your support will really help to continue to help this podcast to grow. So I appreciate it so much. And follow us on Instagram at Dishing Up Diaspora Podcast. Also follow me on Instagram at ChefEmmy_. And follow us on Patreon. I just started a Patreon channel. It's completely free right now. And that is at Chef Emmy TV. Okay, today I am so excited that I not only have one amazing guest, but two in the house. I'm joined by the powerhouse duo, Gabrielle and Danielle Davenport, the brilliant sisters behind BEM Books More, a one-of-a-kind bookstore that's dedicated to food literature across the African diaspora. Gabrielle, a curator and creative producer, that's kind of a mouthful as well, and Danielle, an actor and writer, combine their love of Black culture, books, and food to create a space that celebrates the deep connections between storytelling and the culinary traditions of the diaspora. I am so excited to welcome you two here. I cannot wait to really dive deep into your story and how you came up with, the BEM Books, and that you knew that you wanted to be on this journey to this amazing space that you've created and are continuing to create. Welcome to Dishing Up Diaspora.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, before we dive into the story and the journey, I like to play a little game that's called Quick Dish. And I'm just going to name two different things, and each of you can answer and let me know which speaks to you the most. Okay, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Tea.
Dining out or cooking at home?
Both. I'll go dining out.
Yeah, also both, but I guess cooking at home. I don't know. I love restaurants though.
Yeah. Street food or fine dining?
Street
also
food.
Both. Street food.
Yeah. Physical book or audio book?
Physical book.
Physical book.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, and last one is early morning or late night?
Aspirationally, early morning. Actually, late night.
Relate to that.
Late night, those things. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, I would love to kind of start at the beginning, growing up, what were your most vivid food memories? How did food show up in your early years?
I love that question. It was just so much a part of the fabric of everything that it's hard to even separate it out,
Mm-hmm.
We come from a big family, and so amazing stories and amazing smells just feel like they were all flavors, all combining all the time. We had, I'm from Jersey originally. We have a little bit of an age gap, so we have sort of, different elements in the mix. But there were just so many food memories and sort of gatherings and lessons and sort of reminders. Our grandmother, who actually sort of inspired the name of BEM, comes from our grandmother's initials. And our maternal grandmother passed away when I was 1, but her spirit was just always so present. And there were always sort of memories and discussions of what she used to make and how she used to make it. And it just feels like there was always so much a texture of food being sort of at the center or a really important part of things.
Yeah. And what type of food was she making? Just everything? Does she have like a signature dish that everybody talked about?
There's certain dishes people definitely talk about her roles. Our mom's also a great cook. There's certain dishes between our like sort of mom and aunts. There's like, okay, Aunt Tony's macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Our mom sort of introduced us, I feel like, to so many different global flavors and perspectives. So just really all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Growing up, our landlords were Jamaican, a Jamaican Chinese family that also introduced us to like one of my go-to like favorite recipes that my mom makes is her rice and peas. And that was something she learned from Mrs. Fong upstairs. So I just feel like there were so many influences in so many directions in our food lives from the very beginning.
Gosh, I love that. Just like food has such a power to bring people together, and it's just like this community, like at the center of it all. I love it so much. Okay, so you both kind of went on to different creative fields. You didn't pursue like a culinary degree or something like that, but it seems like food and stories of recipes and cooking still remain a really big part of your life. But I kind of want to explore like your different fields. Danielle, you're an actor, it sounds like. That's so amazing. And Gabrielle, production and curation as well. Can you both kind of speak to that and how I'm a chef, but I also really kind of just identify just like as a creative, like an artist, period. So I can see how all of that kind of like relates. It's not like you were like technology or something completely far removed from like food. But yeah, I just love to hear about the journey of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I mean, as Danielle was describing, food was the way that we stayed connected to our family. Danielle grew up in New Jersey. I grew up in California. Our parents moved sort of a time zone at a time. And so being able to come back to Jersey for Thanksgiving every year, which happened to be 2 weeks after my birthday. So we often had a birthday cake when I got off the plane, which was very exciting. It was such the way that we sort of stayed connected to our family, no matter where we were. So it was always there. It was always, sort of a part of the conversation. I remember when I was interviewing for my first production job for a jazz festival here in Brooklyn. And they asked, like, what's your experience with operations and with production? And I was like, well, my mom didn't formally have a catering company, but we did a lot of like serious entertaining. Like she had a lot of stuff and we would have tons of people over and everybody had a job to do. And I really talked about it as like, again, I haven't done operations formally, but I do understand what is required to have something come together beautifully and to present something that feels good to people. And that requires a ton of labor and a ton of care. And like, there's something really special about that. And so the sort of through line for me is creating experiences for people, whether it's music or dance or food or, beautiful discussion about a book. It's about like, how can we set the table? I didn't even mean that as a pun. But how can we set the table and set the scene for people to have a great open experience where they're, learning something new and delighted and their brains are turned on and it smells good and they're just sort of having a good time. So that has been present throughout my whole career. And when I graduated from college, I knew I either wanted to go into food or into music. I ended up getting a job in music first. And so there I went and sort of spent the first decade of my career doing that. But food was always just sort of nagging at the back of my mind. I wanted to figure out a way to do it more formally. So I organized with the Central Brooklyn Food Co-op for a little while, which is a Black-led cooperative working to open a grocery store in Central Brooklyn. So I was really learning more about food justice and food access issues in New York City through that. And again, it just was sort of, we were always kind of moving toward what BEM would become. And it's been really exciting to bring some of that production. Certainly, this is a deeply curatorial project that we are on. So it's been exciting to bring all of that work together, and sort of express it through Black food and books at BEM.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Can you speak of okay, so you finally had the idea of BEM. Like how did that come about for you two?
We were thinking about starting a business together and kind of bouncing some ideas off of one another, and, knew about the handful of culinary bookstores across the country, and obviously this incredible legacy of Black owned bookstores. And as we were thinking about it, we were like, there isn't a Black food bookstore. There isn't a space that is bringing these two things together. And it feels like that's something that we should have. And we very much think that food touches everything, sort of the point of our mission statement. But it's like whether it's politics or climate or kind of anything and everything about the way that we relate to each other as individuals, as cultures, societies, all of it feels like there's a food way in to that conversation. And so we sort of wanted to think about what happens if we take food and books as sort of the center of the story. How far can we reach as we think about global Black cultures and all of what makes us all really specific, and also all of what connects us. So we really were excited to have this kind of culinary literary way of digging into culture.
Yeah, and I love that because I think, I don't know about you, you were talking about how your grandma's recipes and all those stories were kind of passed down. I don't know if she actually like wrote them down. I know that in my family and in a lot of like Black and brown families, they're not written down, they're passed down verbally and through stories and things like that. So I feel like my generation, this generation now is kind of like changing that, and we are listening to all these stories and kind of trying to record them, write them down, and hopefully moving forward with that. And I think that's like so important, at least that's, I feel like really called to write these recipes and stories down that have been passed down my ancestry line. But I love that you're creating a space that these stories and these recipes that are really important, that tell history, can be at, it's amazing.
I love hearing you.
Yeah. Oh no, I was gonna say,
and then we both had the same impulse just to jump in and say that we love you mentioning that, because it's so true that when we talk about books, like in fact, as over the 4 years that we've been in business and the way that we describe what we do, how it's evolved, one of the things we're saying more and more is that it really is about storytelling, because deeply honoring those sort of oral traditions of learning through storytelling, learning by watching, all of that is like very much at the heart of what we're doing. And so we want to honor what's on the page, but we also want to honor the culinary history and storytelling and all of the goodness that is happening outside of the page, and through our voices and legacies and other kinds of ways as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you started as a pop-up. Like I love that. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Because I feel like, people get really discouraged when kind of starting a new business and feeling like they have to have it like all perfect and ready and set, but there are different ways you can go about it, and different journeys to like that actual goal that you have in mind. And I think pop-ups are great, so can you speak a little bit more about that as well?
Yeah, so we entered a business pitch competition we were working on. I think we started it maybe in September of 2019, something like that. So it was through the Brooklyn Public Library. We were very excited about figuring out how to open a brick and mortar food bookstore. And 6 months later, as we were going through the process, doing the classes, et cetera, the pandemic arrived. So we had to decide how we wanted to proceed. We didn't want to just sort of wait indefinitely, because who knows? We had no sense of knowing how long it was going to take to sort of come out of whatever that was. And so we decided to start online. And as soon as it was, deemed safe to be back out in public, we started doing one-day pop-ups, holiday pop-ups, sort of being wherever we could show up to tell people about the work we were doing. So we did start as sort of e-com and a pop-up mobile bookstore. And we're very eager to open the space that we've been dreaming about for all of these years. But it's been really wonderful to be able to build our community and really understand what people are interested in seeing from a place like ours, as we've been making the plans for what will eventually be the brick and mortar. because there has not previously been a Black food bookstore. And it's also a really interesting moment, at least in New York, and I think across the country, there are so many chefs who don't have restaurants, but are cooking for people all the time, right? Not just sort of private chefing, but doing pop-ups and residencies. There's a real culture around that. And so figuring out how we can, again, be of service to those chefs and other food entrepreneurs and writers who don't have cookbooks out yet, but like, how can we really build a space where everyone can be together and sharing ideas and eating well along the way.
Yeah.
It's been great to spend the last 4 years really thinking about the best ways to do that.
And I love that, especially, the restaurantless chefs like myself, I love that, creating a home, a space where we can still share our talents and things like that and gather as a community. I think this is, I mean, super obvious, right? Like, why aren't there so many? But like,
Yeah.
thank you so much for, being able to kind of see the need and setting the work forth to get this going. So where are you in the process right now with BEM?
That is an excellent question. We are very, very close to signing a lease. We hope that we will be able to announce soon where the location is as we get underway on a build out, that we are excited to push right through and get our doors open, and hoping to activate the space beginning sort of late summer, early fall.
Nice. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you.
We can't wait to welcome you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hopefully we can host you for a pop-up or
I
something when your
know.
book comes
Oh
out.
my gosh,
Very
I would love
Absolutely.
to. I would love
Yeah.
to. I love that so much. Thank you. Okay, what's a book in your collection that you think that everyone should read if they want to understand the depth of Black food ways? I know that's such like a loaded and hard question.
Well, that's such a good question. That's not one we've gotten before either. Like,
Yeah.
people ask us
Yeah.
about, sort of different slices of how to think about our collection, but I don't think we've gotten
Yeah.
that specific one before. Um,
I
yeah.
would I would say like I think that like in America, like I moved to Seattle when I was 6 years old from Brazil. And I think, being a Black Brazilian, but also kind of presenting or passing for like a Black American, because I'm Black, so like it's been interesting to kind of see the how it is to be like a Black Latino and then like a Black American, and also just the knowledge or the lack of knowledge, I feel like, that folks have, that the transatlantic slave happened to it was like a lot of countries, and Brazil had millions of enslaved Africans kidnapped and brought to Brazil, whereas America it was like hundreds of thousands. So just that discrepancy. And so I think that like the story of there's Black people kind of everywhere is not really told a lot, so I know that was like a super loaded questions, but I think that like for me especially is really important to write a book that showed like the African diaspora outside of the US, because that story is not told. I think when we think, oh, slavery and all that, it's very much just like, oh, it just happened in America. I think that nowadays it's kind of more common knowledge and people are exploring more and learning more about that. But I think that we learn through food really well. Like it's almost like a safer, kind of more vulnerable way to learn about history and culture and stuff. So are there like any books from like African diaspora around the world that you think like really that you could answer that question with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the first books that popped to mind was Dr. Jessica B. Harris's High on the Hog,
Yes.
just sort of as a way into, it's definitely more grounded in the American perspective, but looking, at sort of tracing the roots all the way back. So to me, that's always a wonderful entry point to the collection. And then Bryant Terry's Black Food, it's very sort of contemporary and present, but has lots of contributors from all across the diaspora. So it feels like a wonderful snapshot of its sort of moment in time, but is completely timeless in the ways that it sort of provides a window into so much of what's happening in Black food cultures all across the world.
Yeah. High on the Hog, definitely. But the book and the documentary, I think it spoke so much to me as well. So another difference that I've noticed, like with Black American culture versus like Black Brazilian culture, is that we in Brazil still have a very strong relationship and connection to Africa. So like we're able to kind of relate our food back to, oh, this, is West African, and our culture and our dance and our music. Whereas I feel like here, I mean, I haven't lived in southern US, just here in Seattle, but I feel like there's a little bit more of a disconnect, like where folks don't really kind of connect it back to its roots, back to, West Africa and how it traveled down here. So that book and just the story that it told and the documentary really kind of just like told that untold story. So it definitely I loved it so much.
I think Dr. J's work in general, her whole oeuvre really does that thing, right? Like it's really about, yes, we are here in an American context, but what are all of the connections to Brazil, to the African continent? What was going on in New Orleans? Like, let's really talk about the food and how that was really people talk about New Orleans as a melting pot in a number of ways, right? But her work is really about like, let's look at the food and other parts of culture that were coming through there. So I think most books that she has written, you're going to get an exciting sort of way into thinking about that. And I love this question and the way that you're framing it, because it's very important to us that BEM is a diasporic celebration of Black food, right? People, I think it's maybe less so now, but especially when we first started, sort of assumed it was just Black American food, which is rich and has its own history and plenty to dive into. But it's like, no, what's really exciting to us is to talk about and think about how sort of Black cultures globally are distinct and have their own things going on, but are connected in these really interesting and exciting ways. And I should say, exciting to think about how people are innovating and finding connection through those things now, but also like there are deep and complicated histories about why these things traveled in the ways that they did. So there's like endless things to talk about, to excavate, to discuss. And for both of us in different ways, spending time in Brazil was a big part of sort of how I came to think about diaspora. Danielle studied abroad in Brazil, and I went to visit her with our parents, and I was in 4th grade, and that trip literally like blew my head off. I was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable to have an in-person interaction with what diaspora looks like, right? Like I grew up in the Bay Area in California, and there were Black folks from all over the world that I was interacting with, but all in a very specific context. So to be in another place and to hear people talking about the Africanisms, right? And how those things showed up in Brazilian culture and the food. Like I still remember, I don't remember what kind of restaurant we were at, but I had moqueca, and I can still like, I can feel myself sitting in that chair and eating that food and being like, I want to eat this all the time. What is this? I've never had something like this before, but it feels right. There's a lot about finding sort of familiarity in other cultures that's really central to what we're doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I did not know that you were in Brazil. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It was amazing. I was in school. I studied both theater and comparative literature and society, and focused on the African diaspora in Latin America and the Caribbean. And in part because I knew that I was already immersed in a lot of Spanish and had sort of easier access to that. That was a part of the decision to go to Brazil. I was in São Paulo studying at USP and PUC, and focused mostly on literature, but able to sort of dive into all kinds of things. And it was just an incredible experience. And between, meeting people and eating the food and studying the literature, it was my first time living outside, my only time living outside of the US, and I actually haven't been back since. The family who I stayed with are going to be here in like 2 weeks. I'm so excited to reconnect with them. Yeah,
awesome.
but it was just a completely eye-opening experience. And to be able to again just sort of like feel live, those connections, you know, it's
Mhm.
like there's something that connects us across
Yes.
time and space and all the things, but there's just like a cultural something that, you
Yeah.
know, for all of the specificity in the way that it's expressed, there's real connection there across the
Yeah.
diaspora. So it was incredible.
Oh, that's awesome. And now I feel like I'm connected to you too because you spent some
Deixa
time
eu
in
falar
Brazil.
português.
There you go.
Próxima vez eu posso praticar.
See, I would have conducted this in Portuguese if I
Right?
knew.
I would love it. I would love it. I don't get to use it as much. So
Yes.
every once in a while when I do, I'm like, okay, I feel like it's still mostly there. For some
Yes.
time I did translation work,
Oh, yeah.
and that would keep it alive a little bit. But yeah,
Oh,
no,
that's
it's a beautiful
awesome.
language, beautiful culture.
Yeah,
It's
and
really
São Paulo, I mean, is unique unique in and of itself, you know, like it's the largest population of Japanese people live in São Paulo outside of Japan, which is another, you know, crazy fact. But I mean, Brazil in general, like I don't know if you got to travel a lot
a
there,
little
but
bit, yeah.
yeah, it's just,
I
I
did
mean,
get to go to Bahia and
yes.
Rio and Santa Catarina, I
Oh,
think,
okay, yeah.
once while I was there. But yes, the
You
family I
sound more
stayed with.
Brazilian than me because I've really, I've only been to Salvador like you, so.
I think you got me beat from there. But yeah, no, it was an incredible experience. But yeah, the family who I stayed with was of Japanese descent. And I
Yeah.
feel like maybe Lebanese too at the
Yeah.
time. That was like the largest
Mm-hmm.
community outside of Lebanon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the tremendous diversity was
Mm-hmm.
just, like you said, it's such a big country and there
Yeah.
are so many different,
Yeah.
things happening. It was really, really
For
incredible.
sure. No, yeah. And I, you know, Brazil, of course, we have our own issues and racism, colorism, and everything, but it's just a different vibe. I think that we feel more connected there than we do kind of separate. It's just like a
Mhm.
different type of like, um, it's just different from like American. I feel like America, unfortunately, is more like separate, more divided, and like history has been more erased a little bit more than other well, at least Brazil. So I think that, you know, places like BEM and these stories kind of being like in the forefront and kind of being explored is so important for
Mhm.
American culture, honestly. So
Mhm.
I'm so excited for the work that you're doing. This is
Right.
Thank
amazing.
And part
you.
of what's exciting, yes, thank you so much. And part of what's exciting for us too here is that there are so many pockets. Like I think that there are
Mm-hmm.
certain places within the US where the traditions are sort of more alive and different people have
Mm-hmm.
sort of different ways of relating to them. So
Yeah.
one of the things that's exciting for us is to be able to dig into, like if we look at, in South Carolina
Mm-hmm.
and the Gullah Geechee Islands and like
Yeah.
different places where there are different kinds of relationships to, sort of
Mm-hmm.
across the diaspora
Yeah.
or looking back across the generation. So it's always,
Yes.
there's just so much to kind of explore and dig into.
So much. I just learned about like the Gullah Geechee community maybe like 2 years ago at gosh, what was it? I was in Napa at the CIA for like an African kind of like diaspora food conference, and that was
Yeah.
the first time. I mean, I've been here for many, many years, have never heard about that community, and you know, I was like, wow, and I really like related to it as well. I had no idea. I can't wait to kind of keep exploring, you know, things like that. But again,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
what you are doing is really like helping kind of bring that in to the forefront as well, you know.
It's been really interesting to hear folks from other people who are already engaged in food
Mhm.
and therefore like, interested in culture to some extent, right?
Mhm.
And to hear other
Mhm.
folks from different Black cultures describe the information they do or do not have about other Black cultures, right? Like there's
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
much for us to learn about each other through our
Mhm.
food. Like Danielle was
Mhm.
describing, we grew up eating a lot of Jamaican food. Delicious,
Yeah.
amazing. I love that. There's a lot about outside of the dishes that our mom made, there's a ton about Jamaican food I do not know and would
Mhm.
love to learn. Like there's
Mhm.
so much for us to learn about each other. And I think to also keep doing the work that many of us are tasked with,
Yeah.
even if we don't want to, of having to explain Black experiences are not monolithic. There
Mhm.
are a lot of us. There are a lot of us from a lot of different places, all
Yes.
coming from different experiences. And so that's one of the most exciting things I think about what we're providing for myself as well. Like I get to learn
Mhm.
something new every day about,
Yeah.
a specific Black community or culture, and that is what I want to be doing,
Yeah.
like I feel so lucky for that.
I love that. And then I want to kind of talk about working with family. You know, my family opened up a restaurant when I was younger, so I grew up working with my mom, my dad, my brother would help. How has that experience been for you too?
It's been great. It's been a wild journey. Because of the age gap, we've always been sort of in different phases of our lives. So in some
Yeah.
respect, BEM has been the first time that we've kind of been
What
side by side in a
what
thing.
is the age gap between you two?
7 years.
7 years. Okay. My brother and I too. So I
Oh,
relate
nice.
to
Okay.
that.
So, kind of in different phases at different
Yeah.
times. So it's been wonderful to sort of meet each other here in this way.
Mhm.
And so, surprising in many respects, and just really wonderful, especially because it was kind of from this, sense of connection to family legacies around food. That's like, okay, well, what if we think about like our family legacy and their family legacy and then that family over there and sort of
Yeah.
build that out to our cultural legacies, within a given, state, country, and then region, and then
Yeah.
across continents. Like, how do we sort of build out this kind of networked
Mhm.
connection of Black family legacies
Mhm.
around food, around storytelling? So it feels like there would be no way of doing this that made sense except as family,
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I wish my brother would want to work with me.
Eating food
Are you
also.
the
He's
big sister?
I am the big sister.
Okay.
He's
Maybe he'll
not
come
in
along.
I know. He's not in food. It's so interesting.
Okay.
I think like I became like the chef and like the one kind of following in my parents' legacy, and he kind of just like ran the opposite direction. He's actually in school. He wants to be like a lawyer, so that's kind of
Okay.
where he's going towards.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm like, it's okay. Well, we'll need a lawyer in the family,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all. Okay, so I would ask what's next, but it sounds like something special's coming up really soon. I'm so excited for you too. Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about, what's coming up for people to like kind of stay tuned to keep an eye out on?
Yeah, I would just say that we started online even before we began popping up. So our website is where you can shop our full collection, and we've obviously been focusing on the foodiest side of things.
Love it.
But one of the things that's really exciting for us is to look beyond cookbooks. So we have incredible fiction, nonfiction, poetry, kids books. Everything is Black authored and deals with food in some way. But we cover a lot of ground. So I would say check out our site, buy a book. We do wonderful bulk partnerships. So if you are working with an organization that's planning to do a giveaway, or if you're looking to purchase gifts for your team or whatever the case might be, we're always happy to help folks curate book selections and to get great Black food books into folks' hands.
Yes. And what is your website so people can head on over there?
It's bembrooklyn.com, and our Instagram is at bembrooklyn, so BEMBROOKLYN. We do a ton of cookbook launches and other events as well, so check out our Instagram for that, join our newsletter, etc. And if folks are in the tri-state area or find themselves in New York, absolutely come through.
Yes, I will definitely will be coming through the next time I'm there. Thank you to Danielle, Gabrielle. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I'm so excited about what's coming next. I'm really excited to visit the brick and mortar, once it's up and running. So very excited. Thank you for chatting with me today.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having us.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all of what you're working on
Oh,
too.
thank you so much. Yeah, I just, again, like storytelling, just telling our stories, and having a platform where people can continue to share their story and all kind of like centered through food is my favorite thing. So
Exactly. I feel like we're doing this work together, right?
exactly. Yeah, we're stronger together than we are, apart. So
Absolutely.
all right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in again this week to Dishing Up Diaspora. I will meet you here next week again with some more amazing stories.